Hello and welcome to another episode of Everyday CX-ISM, the podcast that takes real human experiences and unpacks what they tell us about the businesses behind them. I'm Katie Stabler, founder and director of Cultivate, a customer experience, design, global and award-winning strategic consultancy. And in every episode, we just take a story, good or bad, or somewhere in between, and dig into the psychology, the operations, and the business decisions that shape it. Why? Because customer experience is not abstract. It happens every day to every one of us. And if we keep that understanding front and centre, then maybe, just maybe, we will design, deliver, manage, and evolve customer experiences in a way that serves businesses and humans alike. So whether you're a business owner, a leader, or someone who's ever had an experience that made you think, well, this podcast is for you. And today, I am joined by the OG of customer experience himself, Ian Golding. Ian is a globally recognised CX specialist, an international keynote speaker, and the author of Customer What? The Honest and Practical Guide to Customer Experience. He was the first person in the world authorised to teach the CCXP accreditation and has supported over 59 countries, driving the human side of customer experience for over 2 decades. I met Ian many years ago when he supported me through the CCXP accreditation, and now I'm very proud to call him a friend. Ian, welcome to Everyday CX-ISM.
Thank you so much, Katie, and thank you for making me appear to be incredibly old, which I am. So that's it.
Unintentional. Did I get? Is it 59 countries? Did I get that
It's
right,
actually,
or is it increased?
well, every time you speak to me, it goes up. So it is currently 66, if you can believe that.
Holy moly! That is some thing to have on your belt. That's amazing.
Well, it's either a good thing or a bad thing, but yeah, no, it's amazing to experience so many different cultures.
Yeah, absolutely. And what a dynamic for customer experience, because we are all slightly nuanced, right? But
Indeed.
I thank you, in between all of these 66 countries you're travelling to, I thank you so much for being here today with me. Without further ado, and without your customer experience hat on, Ian, because this is always the hardest bit when you're speaking to CX professionals. As a customer yourself, I'm going to get comfortable while you can share your customer experience with us. Tell us what happened.
So I'm very happy to do so, and you will know this, Katie, but as a customer experience professional, we never switch off, which is why typically my family don't like traveling with me, because if something bad happens, typically bad, because they don't necessarily focus on the positive, but if something bad happens, they all look at me as if to say, Dad, do not speak. You're not allowed to speak. Don't say anything. So when I am experiencing things as a consumer in my own right, I can't switch off. And that being said, I can separate work from pleasure. And there are times where I'll just let things slide. But there are other times when I think, do you know what, I need to say something. And when I say something, it's not because I want anything in return. It's because, as you know, that this is my vocation. And I know it's the same for you, Katie. It's not my job. And if I can help people understand my perspective as a customer, if that can then help them to provide better experiences for others, then that's what I'll do. And in the spirit of my international travel, it would be bizarre if my story wasn't one that was international. And it's actually an experience I've had relatively recently. I say relatively recently. It was the end of May. Now, 31st of May, just to give you the background, just so happens to be my wedding anniversary. It also happens to be my eldest child's birthday. So Kira was born on our first wedding anniversary, which my wife has never forgiven me for. Apparently that's my fault. On the 1st of May, 2026, Kira was celebrating her 3rd birthday, which just as a result happens to be our 24th wedding anniversary. Now, being good parents, we prioritise Kira's birthday rather than our wedding anniversary. So really, for 23 years, we've not really had a wedding anniversary because it's all been about Kira. But this year, Kira has been living in Madrid for the last 2 years.
Mm.
So we decided, Naomi and I, my wife, that we would have a few days in Menorca, which for various reasons is one of our favourite places to go. Just the two of us, so we could get a little bit of a sort of wedding anniversary period in
Yeah.
before then going from Menorca to Madrid to celebrate Kira's birthday with her in person in Madrid. Okay.
Nice.
So we've never done that before. In fact, this might sound bizarre to some people listening, but 24 years of marriage, 4 days in Menorca, just the two of us, is the longest we've ever had just the two of us on our own since Kira was born.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And the only reason we could do it is because the other two, Jack and Katie, who are 21 and 18, stayed at home to look after the dogs. So we had everything planned. We had 4 wonderful days in Menorca. We stayed in a 4-star hotel. It was fine. You know, in fact, we had an incredible view, and it was good. So we get to Madrid, but being Madrid, being Kira's birthday, we thought we'll push the boat out. We'll stay in a nice 5-star hotel.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to name the hotel because that's not the point. It's not about who they are. Now, this hotel is very new. It's a year old. Beautiful. Right in the centre of Madrid. Beautiful location. The hotel itself is fantastic. We had a wonderful room, an amazing terrace. The product, amazing. Okay, so why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because the product was great.
Mm-hmm.
However, a number of issues occurred during our 2-night stay.
Right.
Firstly, Madrid, well, as we know in the UK at the moment, we're going through a heat wave, but Madrid was around 31, 32 degrees, but air-conditioned hotel, that's not a problem. But the minibar in the hotel wasn't working. Now, this is a 5-star hotel, it's not cheap, it's not working. We told the hotel, they couldn't fix it.
Ooh.
Now, that in itself, things go wrong. But what that meant is that we couldn't have any cold water in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that meant that every time we needed cold water, I had to phone reception to get them to bring cold water. The reason I'm sharing this is that there was no anticipation of the fact that if the fridge isn't working, let's not wait for the customer to tell us that they need cold water. Why don't we actually just deliver cold water and some ice to their room throughout the day so they don't have to do that? That didn't happen. To a degree, that's not the biggest issue, though. The top of this hotel has a rooftop pool and an exclusive terrace with a cocktail bar and a Japanese-themed restaurant. And unbeknown to us, it has become so popular, lots of influencers like to go there. But it's part of the hotel, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So we decided on the day of Kira's birthday, we would invite some of Kira's friends to come and have a drink with us before we then go for a meal in this Japanese-themed restaurant. Now, first issue is they knew it was not just Kira's birthday, but our wedding anniversary. But they said, yeah, that's fine. We'll have a special space for you. That space didn't materialise.
Oh,
And when we
dear.
got to the terrace, it was obviously far too much effort for them to try and figure out what to do. They ended up putting us in a corner of the terrace that didn't have any air conditioning. But basically, it was a bit naff. So it was a bit embarrassing with Kira's friends being invited, blah, blah, blah. What's then
Yeah.
worse is that we then go to the restaurant and they don't seem to recognise that it's a special occasion. In fact, they put us in possibly one of the worst tables in the restaurant. We then questioned, hang on a second, you do know we're hotel guests. Oh, that's irrelevant, apparently. To cut a very long story short, bit of an argument. They moved us to another table. It wasn't where we were supposed to be. No recognition of the special occasion at all. It was just all a bit flat. Now, I'm sharing all of this with you because when I check out of a hotel and
Mm.
the receptionist will typically say, how was your stay, sir?
Mm-hmm.
Now, Naomi had to leave earlier, actually, to get back to the UK. I was going from Madrid somewhere else. So I was on my own when I checked out. And so I didn't feel constrained by having the family watching me. So I could unleash what I needed to unleash. And I said, look, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you in good faith because I don't want anything from you. I just need you to understand. It transpires that the top floor of this hotel the rooftop pool, the bar, and the restaurant have been outsourced to another company. And
Oh.
the employees are not the hotel's employees. Okay. And
Mm.
as a result, they are managed completely differently to the rest of the hotel. The receptionist obviously knows this because it's quite clear that I'm not the first hotel guest to tell them that the way you're treated at the top of the hotel is completely different to the rest of the hotel. I decided that I would email the hotel. I emailed the guest experience manager to pass all of this information on. And to cut a very long, because I know I'm taking up a lot of rambling time here, to cut a very long story short, what I'm pleased about is so there are lots of positives and negatives in this story. What I'm really pleased about is that the hotel completely get it. The guest experience manager totally got it. And they have facilitated a meeting with the outsourced company to help them understand how the way they behave affects their hotel guests.
Mhm.
Ultimately, this siloed working, this sort of misconnection between different parts of the hotel, ultimately leaves me remembering not the fantastic room, but remembering the fact that we spent a lot of money and it was all a bit flat in the end. Would I go back there again? Probably not. And that's ultimately the point. So I've given you a huge amount of information there, Katie. Do with it what you will.
Oh, well, obviously, I'm like, where is this hotel? Because I don't want to go there, but I'm not going to put you under the pressure of answering that. No, I appreciate your discretion. And look, I mean, gosh, that's such a great experience to share because you said the buzzword silo there, and I don't think any organization that I've ever worked with or known or spoken to somebody about doesn't experience the challenge of silos in some way. So whether you are a hotelier or in any other industry at all, I think you can take a lot from this conversation. Gosh, that kind of separation of accountability and responsibility and those completely two different experiences, it doesn't matter to a customer, right? Like, we shouldn't care if the people who look after and own and manage the restaurant on the top are not the same as the hotel, because to us, it's one experience, right? We're there.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
Exactly.
that is, and gosh, for them obviously to be aware of the situation already, and
And this is the point that I've
Mhm,
used one word already, but that there are two key words in all of this, and that is anticipation and
mhm,
proactivity.
yeah,
Because these are the two primary issues here. That the issue with the minibar not working, things do go wrong, I get that. But
mhm,
if you know it's gone wrong and you know you're not going to be able to fix it within the time frame, then anticipate what should you do that will actually support your guest in that
mhm,
situation. They
yep,
didn't do that. Now, the staff were lovely though. You know, and this is the sort of the dichotomy here. So when they did come, they were really understanding, and they were kind and empathetic. They were nice. Um, Ultimately, should it take the guest to tell you that the minibar's not working? You know, and it shouldn't. They should have known that before we moved into the room. Who's filling up the minibar? Someone has filled it up. Someone would know. This doesn't feel very cold. I think it should be checked.
mhm,
Obviously, that didn't happen. But at the same time, this issue with the rooftop, it was clear that they knew. It was clear that I wasn't the first person to say it. So why have they not done anything about it? You know, for them, maybe it's down to we have a contract with these people. There's nothing we can do. Of course you can. This is your hotel's reputation, you know, and ultimately, as you rightly say, Katie, I don't care who's managing it. To me, it's the hotel. You
mhm.
know, hotel guests should be treated the same wherever they are in the property. So, you know, I think my key message to anyone listening to this is that you have got to anticipate customer needs and you have got to proactively address issues. Don't wait for it to go wrong. You know, think forward. What can we do to prevent these kind of things from happening in the first place? That is for me the most important learnings from what I'm sharing with you.
Yeah, proactivity is such a big one, isn't it? And I think we all work in these environments where we have so much to do, we're so busy that we naturally fall into a reactive state, which is it is hard to get out of, but once you are out of it, the benefits of operating in a proactive way, I mean, gosh, are huge to the business.
Yes.
I actually had a similar hotel experience recently. I was in the UK. It was a five-star golf resort hotel. I'd never stayed there before. And when I got there, they had changed all of the room service. So there was no physical menu. It was a QR code.
Yes.
Cool. That's okay. I'm reasonably technology savvy, so I can operate a QR code, but it wasn't working. So
Hmm.
I had to pick up the phone and ring, which who does that anymore? I had to pick up the phone and ring, and they didn't know the QR code was working. It wasn't working. Sorry. So exactly the same issue as you. You know, somebody probably that should have been on the checklist. You know, check that in the room, make sure it always is working. Nobody had done that, so nobody knew. Not only that, because I had to ring, whilst they were coming up to bring me a physical menu, I said, "Oh, bring a glass of
Yes.
wine up on your way, please, thank you." So they brought their menu and the glass of wine, and they charged me a tray charge. Now, the problem here is that if I'd have had the menu in the first place, I would have ordered my drink and the meal at the same time, so I would have only been paying one tray charge. But they
Yes.
charged me
Yes.
twice. So I had a little niggle about this. But again, it's that proactivity. You know, in a five-star hotel, you would expect someone to think and go, do you know what? There's a problem here. We'll strike that tray
Yeah.
charge and only charge one. And they did, but I had to ask them to do that. And again, it
Yeah.
comes down to that
Y-
little bit of forethought.
You see, there is an important point about perception of value here.
Mhm.
You know, that there is a reason why the hospitality industry uses a star system, you know, because you're paying for what you perceive the value to be. But there is a difference between being good and great,
Mhm.
you know, and if you're paying a lot of money, you want to get the value that you're paying for. You know, if I want to have a less memorable experience, I'll pay for a 3-star hotel, but then I won't be disappointed. And you
Uh-huh.
know, the reason I mentioned the hotel in Menorca, the hotel in Menorca was not the same level of quality as the hotel in Madrid, but I had a far more memorable experience there than I did in the one in Madrid, and
Yeah.
that's the point, because nothing went wrong in that hotel. You know, it was absolutely fine. It did exactly what I expected it to do. And in fact, slightly more, because they gave us a corner room and the view was amazing. You know, so I think what organizations need to determine is, what do they want to be? You know, because if you want to be in a luxury sector, then you've got to deliver that luxury experience consistently. What happened to me in that hotel would not happen to me in a Ritz-Carlton, because in a Ritz-Carlton, they absolutely have embedded that point about anticipation and attention to detail. Those things, that things do go wrong, but they deal with it.
Mhm.
They understand that when things go wrong, you've got to deal with it so that actually the guest remembers the way you corrected it, not what went wrong in the first place. Bizarrely, even though I said I didn't expect to get anything from this 5-star hotel, you know, they didn't come back to me and say, "Do you know what, Ian? We're so grateful for you giving us that feedback. Actually, we'd love you to come back on us for a night and try it again." You know, now, as I say, I don't expect that, but actually, if I was the general manager of that hotel, that's exactly what I would have done. You know, just
Yeah.
give us another chance. Let us show you that we've addressed those things. We've dealt with the management of the rooftop. You know, they know my daughter is living in Madrid. They know that I'm going to come back to Madrid, but they didn't do that. So, you know, I think that there is an understanding, but not deep enough. It's not embedded in their psyche. And, you know, ultimately, will that impact them in the long term? Who knows?
Well, I mean, it sounds like it absolutely will, because reputation is everything, right? Especially if you are a five-star or positioning yourself as a five-star luxury hotel. Yeah, you have to make
Yeah,
sure it levels up to expectations. And I
that's
think
right.
that's also something that is really important to highlight here, is that we have these expectation biases, right? So yes, we've got a preset expectation about the five-star resort, but in your case, it was a very special occasion. You told
Yeah,
them
that's right.
about your anniversary. You told them about your daughter's birthday. So there's this extra customer expectation,
Yeah.
right? Rightly or wrongly, we hope that they will treat us in a way that is
Yeah.
representative of what we are sharing with them. You're choosing to spend your time and your money on that special occasion with them. The least they can do is give you an expected
That's
experience.
right.
Maybe a little bit better would be nice, but the fact that you were also let down on a bigger level, that's really important for these industries to acknowledge, because we do go to restaurants and get a free glass of fizz on our birthday. It's not unknown. So to
Yes.
go up right to the other end of the scale, it really hits you hard as a customer, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, life is about experiences. And some people have more of a focus on possessions.
Mhm.
For me, life is about experiences and what you remember. I think we are living in a world where that, unfortunately, is sometimes and far too often being pushed to the side. At the moment, the Football World Cup is going on, as many people will know. I'm not going to use the S word that the Americans like to use. But I was watching a YouTube video yesterday of a guy who thought he would test out corporate hospitality at a World Cup game. And the only one he could afford was Jordan versus Algeria in the group stages. Now, obviously, it's a less glamorous game, so that's why he could afford it. He paid over $2,000 for a VIP ticket. And he went through, and he wasn't doing this as an customer experience person. He was just doing this as a human being, through the list of things that he was told he would get for that price. And he got possibly 25% of what he was told he would get for the price. But when you think about the Football World Cup, is it about the experience
Mm.
for the consumer going to see what the World Cup's all about? Or is it about an organisation trying to make as much money as they possibly can in a very short period of time? Now, I don't want to get into politics, but it's the latter. It's not
Mhm.
about the football, it's
For
about the
sure.
money. But that's wrong. Isn't that wrong? This is where we I know you focus so much on humanity. I think this is where we just lose humanity, all of this. Because what sometimes I think, well, very often, people who make the decisions about these things forget that if the boot was on the other foot, how would they feel?
Mhm.
They wouldn't want that. If whoever was managing that rooftop restaurant experienced what we did, he'd be livid with what he experienced. That's what we've got to keep reminding leaders is, if you're doing things to your customers you wouldn't do to yourself, then why are you doing it?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that is a crucial takeaway for anyone listening to this, is that actually a lot of organizations think that the customer experience they are delivering is different to what they actually are. And I mean, one of the things you said to me right at the beginning strikes a chord here. You said, that place, the rooftop bar, was popular with influencers. So if this company who manages that rooftop bar is just seeing influencer after influencer coming and obviously only sharing all of the fun,
Yes,
glamorous pictures and the beautiful food that they're eating, they probably see this, wow, we're obviously doing really amazing because all these people want to
yes,
come. They're not seeing the reality. And maybe they're, casting a blind eye to when people like yourself are actually giving it a bit of feedback, and they're like, well, if
100%.
people are still coming, what does it matter?
Absolutely right. And that is
Yeah.
what it was, and that they obviously were prioritizing that demographic
Hmm.
rather than the demographic of people spending a lot more money by being in the hotel itself.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you said about the humanity piece, which I don't want to go into the AI conversation here because this isn't about AI, but it is just such a big topic right now because of the world changing. And I've had two experiences this week, two people experiences, which just have stuck with me. This morning, a gentleman delivered a big package outside my door. He just knocked and got in the van. When he saw me come to the door and saw little girl dressed in pink, he said, "Oh, do you want me to?" He got out of his van. He said, "Do you want me to come and help you lift that in?" And I was fine. But it was a really nice touch that actually he saw me and thought, "Oh, I'll help her lift that. It's
He
heavy."
doesn't know that Katie Stabler goes to the gym a lot. Yeah.
Mm. But it was so nice of him not just to look and drive off. It
Yeah,
was his
yeah, yeah,
thought
yeah,
and
yeah,
consideration. And I'll give that feedback back to that delivery
yeah.
company. And likewise, I was in a little shop in Knutsford just getting some toiletries. And I ended up having such a nice conversation with the person serving. It was a Sunday. It was quiet. We ended up chatting away. He ended up showing me his leg tattoos. But it was just a human
Yeah,
moment. I'm not going to remember the product that I bought from that shop, but I will remember
yeah.
him. And yeah, these things are so
The
important.
the problem though with all of this is what you experienced with the delivery driver, what you experienced in the shop was accidental.
Yeah.
And I think that we are as a global world of business and whether it's public sector or private sector, we are far too reliant on the goodwill of
Yeah.
individuals who do what they think is the right thing to do, but we take that for granted. And you will feed back to that delivery company, but most people won't. They'll just think, well, what a nice guy. But, the people feedback when it goes wrong. They
Yeah.
rarely feedback when it goes right. And this is why the accidental experience is what is actually maintaining the experience for most organizations, but it's not sustainable. We need people to know that what he did should be the norm, not the exception.
So this is a really big question, and I don't think we'd ever have enough time for you to really answer it. But what can companies do to make that the norm, to stop relying on goodwill of individuals?
Well, as you know, and in fact, the basis of what you are driving, Katie, storytelling is so important. And we need organizations to both capture stories of things that their people are doing, whether it be good or bad, and they need to be continually sharing them to bring to life the reality of what positive experiences look like and what happens when things go wrong and how we should respond to it. But again, it needs to be proactive. Proactivity is not just from an organization thinking about the customer, it's almost also proactively supporting the employee experience. I know that you had the pleasure of going to the Employee Experience Awards this week. We're still not a million miles away from organizations recognizing the importance of the employee experience. We said it's sad in a way that the Employee Experience Awards are much smaller than the Customer Experience Awards. Well, why?
Mm.
In this digitally obsessed world we live in, we can't do this without our people.
No.
But what my worry is that we're getting into a period of the evolution of work where a new demographic of worker is coming into the marketplace that thinks and behaves completely differently. And they're not going to put up with the things that older generations put up with. They're not prepared to be spoken to in a negative way. Businesses need to prioritize AI, but they also need to prioritize the future of the employee experience at the same time.
Yeah, here. I couldn't have said it better myself. It's just, I mean, that's a whole nother conversation for a
It
whole
is.
nother podcast. But it is so crucial. And I think it's a quote from Richard Branson. But there are two most important assets for any business: your employees and your customers. And without them, you
Absolutely.
typically don't have a business. So it says it all, right?
Absolutely. 100%.
So let's just end this conversation because I think we could really dig much deeper into it and I'm sure get into the nitty gritty. But we've covered a lot, I think, already. What's one or two key takeaways you think that anybody listening, regardless of industry, should take from this conversation?
Three things. Firstly, it's absolutely critical that anyone leading an organization or leading people within an organization knows what it feels like to be a customer, but
Oh, yeah.
also knows what it feels like to be an employee. So, experience what your customers do, experience what your colleagues do. The second thing is be proactive. Don't wait for things to go wrong and then try to deal with it. Proactively determine whether or not things are working as they should be. And where things aren't going wrong, or where you have information that allows you to understand what your customers are intending to do, anticipate their needs. Don't wait anticipate. If you know that you can do something to make the experience better, then just do it. You know, right now we're going through a heat wave in the UK. How many bosses are thinking about what that means for their people? You
Yeah.
know, what that means for, you know, how many of their people are working in offices that don't have air conditioning? And has the boss anticipated what that means? Now, there will be a lot of bosses that have, but there'll be a lot of bosses that haven't. You know what it feels like, be proactive, anticipate.
Sage words. And the other thing that I think is really worth calling out that you highlighted is that recovery piece. You know, that lady at reception who you first spoke to, could she have done more to send you off on your way, feeling positive about that experience? Could the email that you sent have been received better? I think the answer is yes in all cases, and we should not
Yeah,
underestimate the power of recovery. The complaint
absolutely.
isn't the end. Keep going.
Abs-
Ah, Ian, thank you so much. Your story and insights did not disappoint. And to everyone listening, if today's episode has got you thinking, we would love to hear your take. Did you agree with what we were talking about? Did you disagree? Have you got any gristly comments you'd like to share? Come and find me and Ian on LinkedIn and let's keep the conversation going, because I think that's where the real learning happens. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please do like, follow and subscribe wherever you are listening or watching. It helps more people to find the show, of course. And frankly, the world needs more CX conversations like this one. Until next time.
And obviously buy Katie's book as well.
Oh yeah, buy my book. Listen, buy my book, buy everything. Come and get involved in the conversation, guys. Join the leadership course.